can't see.
You can't see what?
I pressed the thingy, the
The
start
start
recording,
recording thing.
and it didn't.
Yeah, now it's fine.
Okay. Good day. This is group 13 reflection session. So reflective essay number 1, it's for grade R, life skills, which the topic was dangers of fire. And then the question was reflect on the science of learning principles. Which science of learning principles were invoked in the lesson? How were the science of learning principles invoked? How successful do you think you were in invoking the science of learning principles? And then how could the lesson be improved? So, the first principle that we invoked is we understand and learn new things by relating them to what we already know. So this was invoked where the teacher asked the learners questions like, "What do you think should be done in the case of fire?" Or they were supposed to share places where they've seen fire, and then how was the fire destroyed? Hmm, okay, and then we also invoked cognition and emotions are intertwined. Yes, where we play we play the learners the video but ways in which we can keep safe from fire. So the video was what, child friendly, engaging, and as this is a form of positive emotion, therefore it fosters learning. And then moving to the body, in the body we invoked working memory is too small, too much information stumps our mind. So this is where the teacher did what? The teacher emphasized that we will be focusing on the do's and don'ts in a case of fire. And we also invoked acquiring proficiency requires
Yeah,
repeated engagement. So this is when the learners did what? The learners had to come to the front and then what? Classify pictures using
yeah,
the do's and don'ts in the case of fire. And then in the conclusion, we 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 invoked what? Learning requires attention and cognitive engagement and it,
yeah,
whereby the teacher took the learners through a guided discussion as a recap, and then they were then given opportunities to ask questions, and then they had to complete an activity where they were supposed to draw the steps to follow in which you can use to stay safe from in the case of fire. And then I think our success in invoking the principles was on an average level, especially in
yeah.
the beginning of the lesson, where we were
It
able
was
to
average.
elicit, yes, we were able to elicit the learners' prior knowledge, of which the learners were engaging. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And then in the body, I think we could have maybe invoked like for improvement, we could have invoked the learning requires attention and cognitive engagement in a way, like instead of having the learners come to the front, we could have grouped them, and then each of them received maybe a picture, and then complete a poster on their own.
Yeah,
What one?
that could have also worked.
And then in the conclusion, I think we could have what? In the conclusion, I think we could have added the cognition and emotions intertwined. Maybe by having a game-based activity or a role play where the learners could pretend maybe to be in a fire, or and now they get the opportunity to practically apply the steps to follow in a case of fire. That, like for example, when what were the steps again? Okay, like in the case of fire, if the thing, the what, I forgot what we took there, but the, yeah, to practically apply those steps in a
Yeah, yeah,
practical
yeah.
activity, like instead of having them complete a written activity. So yeah, that was the grade R lesson.
So for the competencies for a changing world, eh, which competencies for a fast changing world were infused in the lesson? How were they infused? Um, so the competencies that were infused were communication, critical thinking, and collaboration. So communication was infused in such a way that learners were asked questions um, that they had to verbally answer to, um, relating to fire. Yeah, and then for critical thinking, the questions that they were asked um, elicited their prior knowledge, and they required them to think critically. So the questions that they were asked were, um, in the introduction, um, whether they had to explain whether they've been in a place that was burning or not. Yeah, they had to answer such things. And then as for collaboration,
And then we'll record here.
learners had to work with the teacher to fill in the chart of the do's and don'ts of fire. So like they had pictures, and then the teacher was just selecting learners to come to the front and then place the picture on do's and the other picture on don'ts. So yeah, in the in the body of the lesson, critical thinking was also infused when learners cognition when learners had to think about the dangers of fire. Yeah. And
Mm.
then in the consolidation phase, the competencies that were infused were communication and collaboration. Um, these competencies were infused in the classroom discussion where the teacher was asking learners questions and the learners were expected to give answers. And then collaboration was infused in such a way that learners had to participate and work with the teacher during the discussion. Yeah. So, how successful do you think you were in infusing the competencies?
How
So,
successful.
as for the competencies, I think we were successful in in using the one for communication because learners were paying attention, they were giving answers, and also the one for critical thinking. I think we need to improve on creativity. I think we should have created a more creative activity on this lesson. Yeah.
Okay. So we're moving to the other lesson.
Wait, there's this other question. How? Oh, okay. I've already answered it. So, looking at the whole lesson, How successful do you think the lesson was in achieving the aim? What do you think? I think it was successful because um, learners did the activities on the do's and don'ts of fire and what they can do to prevent fires, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It's not like
And
uzoyilalela.
then how how was the lesson structured? Why was the lesson structured this way? Ish, I don't know. I don't understand what they mean here. And how did the learners respond to the lesson?
They responded very well. They were engaging.
Yeah,
They were
they did.
participating. They were able to
Yeah,
complete the activity. So we can say maybe 95% of them
yeah, and they
understood the content.
yeah, and they liked the video, Shami. That Spaggy video. Okay, so I think
Okay.
we can move on to the next lesson.
Okay, please.
Yes.
I'm going to. So when you're done, you're supposed to compile them.
Yeah, we can submit them.
Okay,
Uzobeka amalinki akho.
I'm going to stop this recording. Ngibone ukuthi is it playing now? Cause wow, we're gonna waste our time.
Okay.
So
Is this stop recording?